Hello and welcome to Scouse Pop, the series which examines the groundbreaking musicians who emerged from the creative cauldron of Liverpool. Today I'm joined in the studio by two of Liverpool's most significant songwriters and musicians, Mike Badger and Paul Hemmings, who'll be ably assisted by Kate Milner on backing vocals. So Mike and Paul also run one of Liverpool's iconic record companies, the Viper label. Many viewers will recognise both Paul and Mike as members of Liverpool band The Lars and Paul as guitarist with the Lightning Seeds. However, they've worked together in a variety of musical projects such as The Onset. So, Mike and Paul, welcome to Scouse Pop. We've gone through a few of the things that you've done, but it's only really a small part of your musical career. I'd like to go right back to the beginning, Mike, and say, how did you actually start in music and get your connections with the music scene in Liverpool?
I don't know how it started really. It just you just kind of have a desire to do music. You see people on telly and you enjoy music, and then you think, well, I wouldn't mind having a crack at that. But for me personally, I started by reciting my poems. It was like performance. I had a lot to say for myself with words rather than music to start with. And so at first time I was on stage was getting up, ranting and saying all my thoughts about life and about different people and fashion and stuff like that.
And how old were you then?
I was about 18, 19,
18,
yeah.
It wasn't at primary school when you...
No, no.
You mentioned when I interviewed you last time for the book about being involved in some sort of project to promote music in Liverpool. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was like it was an ill-fated scheme, really. It was set up in Colquitt Street in the Royal Institute there, and what it failed to do was give us much experience in the studio and performance, which it was supposed to do. But what it did do is enable us all to meet each other, and it was a real kind of stellar place, really, because we went on. It was like part-time work. It got you off the dole, and you're supposed to be going on to get experience in music and stuff. But it was all kind of laboured, and it didn't really come off too good. But on it was Paul, who I actually already knew from a mutual friend, myself, John Power, Tommy Scott, and Danny Dean, who ended up being in The Onset with us later. So that was like Space, Cast, The Lars, the Lightning Seeds. There was members of all those on this scheme, so it was a very special time. Yeah.
So you all sort of were spawned by this particular scheme, really? Well, the opportunity to meet, I suppose.
Well, we got to know each other from it, and the ripples from that really are still going out today, really, aren't they?
And Paul, when you were starting in the music business, what were your hopes and ambitions? What did you hope to achieve?
Essentially, I would have just been happy playing the guitar and just carrying on doing that, even if it was, in local bars or whatever. But I also, I suppose, being a kid growing up in the 70s, watched Top of the Pops, and thought, maybe one day it'd be great to go on Top of the Pops, and of course I eventually did. Yeah. So it was fantastic.
And we were thinking about this quite a vibrant musical scene in the 80s, obviously Liverpool. Have you got any recollections, Mike, of Eric's days, or when you were talking to me before about Plato's Ballroom and some of the gigs? Any particular highlights or your recollections of those days?
Yeah, I mean, I was just old enough to just get into Eric's, pretending I was 18, I was only 16, but they kind of turned a blind eye, and it was such a fantastic scene. There was never any trouble there. I think people were a bit scared of the look of people going in there, but in actual fact, I always say it's where the misfits fitted in, the individuals, so much more than a punk club. They had, blues on there, they had jazz nights, they had Cajun music, Rock and Dopsy played there, Sonny Terry, Brownie McGee, Alexis Corner, as well as all the punk bands and the new wave bands. So it was a very vibrant place. It was so much more than a punk club, which is kind of known as, It kind of emerged the same time as punk. And another thing people forget is Liverpool had its own punk scene, not because of London, but it kind of coincided with it. We had our individuals here anyway, It's always been very independent, Liverpool.
So, you know, you're involved, you're immersed really in the music scene, and then you go on to start your first band, which was?
Well, my first band was a band called the Kindergarten Paint Set, which was just experimental, heavy on the rhythm, a lot of a cappella vocals and percussion and stuff like that, and it was just fun, really, just learning your feet, you know, finding your feet, finding what the hell it's all about. And you know, Roger Eagle actually, when he came back to Liverpool after Eric's, gave us some support slots with different bands as well, which was really good. But then I ended up going to London then, and like a lot of people left Liverpool, I went down there for 18 months to see what, you know, I had a few sniffs around with some record labels. It didn't really amount to anything, but so that was my first band.
And then you return and you start the iconic band, The Lars.
Yeah.
You got that lovely photograph of you in Falkner Street, is that?
Yeah, which my wife Jeanette took.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. What I love about that photo, it could have been taken any time from like the 1940s up to like, you know, up until now, really. You know.
And what was that creative process like in The Lars? You know, how did you come up with the songs? What happened?
Well, it started off, it was kind of, I couldn't play guitar. I was very word driven, and I'd write all these words, lyrics, and I'd started like kind of ranting more than just saying them, and you know, and then I'd put my lyrics in front of Lee and say, you know, write a tune, and then he literally would start playing what they suggested to him. And he always came up with some kind of really great, mad, spiky riff or rhythm on it, you know. And then the next thing we'd do a few nips and tucks, and it'd end up being a song, and then we'd do another one. And but again, it was quite experimental early on, you know. It was.
Did you go out your way to try and create something unique, something different? Because it was quite original for the time. I know it's often compared to some of the things that happened in the 60s, but at the time, that was something quite different than what was going on. Yeah.
Well, you know, as we evolved over the next couple of years, I think one of the things I'm very proud of with the Lars was that we brought back those driving acoustics and that kind of rhythm back into Liverpool music, which had, you know, it had become, a lot of it had become haircuts and synthesizers, and we needed to remind people, where's the rock and roll gone here, you know? Right. And I'm really proud that we did that.
And in fact, you go to play one of the songs from the Lars. It's on this album, the Lars. What's this one called? The Lars.
Break Loose.
Break Loose. And the track's called Break Loose. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about the track before we go into play it?
Yeah, it was one of those things where you know, written in mid-80s Liverpool, where it was pretty much, you were hemmed in from all corners, and you had to fight to survive, really, in Liverpool. And Break Loose is about like defying that, and I wanted something unbridled and unshackled, and something that soared and just went and was about liberation and freedom.
Well, we're going to hear that now. This is Mike Badger and Paul Hemmings playing Break Loose.
Point in stopping, what's the use? When you break through, break loose. Look what just happened, we made a truce. You stayed there, I broke loose. You shook the shackles, kicked the ball. You found yourself, you found us all. Found us all. You're living life, total recluse. Freedom now, break break loose. Look for a reason, look for a use, and you break through, break loose. Reason, look for a use, and you break through, break loose. Look for a reason, look for a use, and you break through, break loose, 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 break loose.
Welcome back to part two, and I'll look at the musical careers of Mike Badger and Paul Hemmings. So, Mike, but just thinking about you, you left the Lars after starting the Lars, founder member, you left the Lars in 1987. Any particular reason why you went then? Or was it something you wanted to pursue? Or?
It was actually 1986.
Was it 1986?
December, yeah,
Right.
just before 1987. But it was, well, things, it got very fast and frantic and furious, and I don't think we really had a time to stop and take a breath, really. You know, we were on this trajectory, and we'd kind of took Liverpool, which was, you know, a fantastic thing to do, really, off our, just through stealth, really, you know, and having songs and loads of friends coming down, and then it kind of snowballed, and so it was all really good. But I mean, it's just things happen like that in bands, you know. Yeah, sometimes, you know, hindsight's a wonderful thing, you know, and you can see what happened, and but what can you say? Politics and personalities and you know, most bands break up. Do you know what I mean? Eventually.
So you started the band and then you left, and Paul replaced you?
Yeah, yeah.
So what was that like, Paul, coming into the Lars then?
Well, the Lars already had a following because Mike, you know, a lot of the work had already been done, and John was already in them, and because of the scheme, really, John sort of asked me to join on guitar, which was a fantastic time to join the band. I mean, the thing was, when Mike left, he took half his songs with him. So Lee had to write a load more songs, and quickly, and we had to finish them. So it was a really creative time in the band. So, for instance, you know, Way Out, Timeless Melody, There She Goes are all written around that time. And it was great to work on those songs. It was John, Lee and me every day, just sort of sitting around working on these songs, and then we would play them at the night.
Wow, that was a really quick turn. A lot of those songs are just the ones that always stood. Now that's it. You didn't do any more really after that, did
Well,
you?
the Lars only really had, well, after that, about 12 songs and one album, and they just re-recorded those songs over and over again. So it was a great time in the band's history.
So shortly before that, then you decide to leave before they have the massive hit with "There She Goes."
Yeah, well, it's to be honest, what happened was it just got a bit disillusioning going to the studio and re-recording the same songs over and over again. I mean, I don't know how many times you can actually do that for, but I could only do it for a year or so, and that was enough for me.
3/4 of those songs had been in the set anyway, when
Yeah,
in
even
'86 even.
beforehand.
So
So it was yeah, I needed to do something else with my life.
So that process really that long, it just sucked the life out of you and you decided that was had enough.
It did, but the great thing was I actually saw the Lars years later, and a lot of those guitar bits I'd written were still in the songs, which was that I thought was very flattering. So you know, it was a great time to be in the band.
So onward and upward, and you start the onset, Mike. What direction were you trying to follow then with the onset?
Well, I'd always been more kind of, I think, rockabilly, roots, blues, you know, that end of music really. Lee, I think, had kind of got more into like 60s sounding stuff, you know. It showed in our haircuts as well. And,
You introduced him to Captain Beefheart, I believe, didn't you?
well, not personally, he wasn't there.
That would have been
But,
difficult, yeah.
I knew that, well, I'd said that I was into him. And then later, Lee had come across him and thought, I like this fella, and he's different. And so when I heard that Lee was into him, I thought I could work with this guy. So he was a big influence in us there. But
Back to the onset.
yeah,
Sorry,
the onset, yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
But I was into Hank Williams and country music, and even in the Lars, So the natural thing to do when I left was to go into that, and I kind of formed the onset, and it was kind of a bit rockabilly, bit bluesy, bit country. It was all that really, and no one was really doing that at the time. And we used to get great write-ups and reviews, and it was really good. But I think it was a bit too left field really for any major company to look at, and they didn't really know where we fitted in. I still don't know where I fit in now, to be honest. Yeah.
But no, I mean, it was interesting because nobody else was actually doing that at that particular time. No. And that's what was so striking, I think, about the onset. And then, Paul, you decided to join up forces again.
Yeah, I think after the Lars, I first joined a band with Tommy from Space, which was called the Australians. And then I joined the onset, and I was playing with both bands at the same time. Again, it was the freedom of trying different things, because in the onset I ended up playing like mandolin and banjo and lap steel, and again, great. It was just fun. It's fun, which is what it should all be about.
Yes, absolutely.
And then you release an album, Pro Plus, The Pool of Life.
Yeah,
yeah.
Which was funny because that actually came out about 3 years before the last first album. Even though I spent a year recording it and all that, yeah. Jeff Davis, I gave him a demo tape of our first stuff, and he really loved it. Yeah. He's got a very broad range of, he likes a lot of different music, Jeff. So he really took to it, and so. That was great to get that album out. That opened the doors for us in so many ways, because we'd had an album, then we had reviews, then we could, we ended up touring Europe and going over to Germany a few times. And
so I mean that's a part of the career. And then after a few years with that, you then went off and joined the Lightning Seeds. Then, Paul,
yeah, but
how did that happen?
Well, again, that came through Mike. Because Mike was a friend of Ian Brody's, and Mike had appeared in one of the Lightning Seeds videos, and Ian was looking for a guitar player. So Mike suggested me. So then
we got the world tour,
yes.
And I stayed signing on in Liverpool.
That's the turkey voting for Christmas, isn't it? What was that?
It's true.
But the thing is, to this day, I don't know if there might have been an opening for me in the Lightning Seeds as lead guitarist, but Paul's a lead guitarist. I'm a singer-songwriter, and that's so. It was, and also Ian lived up the road from him, and everything.
Exactly.
It just all worked perfectly, So.
Well, you were talking before about Top of the Pops and world tours and TV. What was it like to be in such a successful band, Paul?
Well, amazing, and it was all a bit dream-like actually, because it was 4 or 5 years of non-stop tours. I mean, literally things like I said, kids dream of going to America, arriving in LA, and being picked up in Cher's stretch limo that she'd had the day before, and all this type of thing. It was incredible. And then doing all the videos, and then at Top of the Pops, I think we did Top of the Pops 8 times, something like that. So it was like, so I feel very lucky to have been able to do that. Amazing times.
Brilliant. Right, well, you're going to do a song from the onset here. It's called First I Feel You. Can you tell us anything about that song, Mike?
Yeah, it should have been the A-side.
Well, I think we should hear that song that should have been the A-side. So this is Paul and Mike again doing First I Feel You.
I've seen it all before. You were sleeping on another floor, and I was knocking on another door. Things were so different then, a different time for a difficult end. Well, I wasn't looking around, and when I was lost, you were found. First I feel you, and then I'll see you. Then I can't see you at all. Things were so different then, a different time for a difficult end. Well, I was looking round. When I was lost, you were found. First I feel you, and then I see you. Then I can't see you at all. First I feel you, then I see you, then I can't see you at all. Yeah. Things were so different then, a different time for a difficult end. Well, I was looking around, and when I was lost, you were found. First I feel you, and then I'll see you. Then I can't see you at all. First I feel you, then I see you, then I can't see you at all.
Welcome back to part 3 and our look at the musical careers of Mike Badger and Paul Hemmings. So, Paul, we mentioned just before the last song that you're in this very successful band, the Lightning Seeds, touring the world. Why did you decide to leave? Was it something that you just burnt out? Did you had enough? Or?
No, it was. I'd had 4 or 5 fantastic years. Again, we toured the world. I'd sort of achieved everything I wanted to achieve, really. I remember it was on the Greatest Hits tour, and I just remember thinking, I'd like to do something different with my life now. It's sort of natural conclusion, really. I played Glastonbury twice. Like I said, it was just an incredible time, and it was time to pick something different.
Yeah.
So it was forming the label.
Right. And that's a fabulous link, actually, to the next bit as well, apart from the label, which we'll talk about in part 4. But, Mike, you certainly got up to very different things. I'm just looking at my list here. Apart from your actual musical career, there's quite a heavy influence for art and certainly TV as well. Could you tell us a little bit about your music, what you were doing then, just musically, and then we'll go into the art and TV.
Well, the devil makes work for idle hands, I've just always done art and music simultaneously. I'd start I suppose you're using that creative part of your brain, I suppose, or whatever. But you know, an awful lot of musicians and actors and writers, and you know, there is overlaps, you know. And but yeah, it was a real surprise when I'd, you know, been putting my heart and soul into a band for all these years, and then I woke up one morning making a living as a sculptor. It was like, you know, how the hell did that happen, you know? But I suppose in some ways the way I'd kind of assisted Paul in introducing him to the Lightning Seeds, he kind of reintroduced me to Tommy and, you know, our old mate from the scheme. And I had this exhibition called Lost and Found, and Paul took Tommy to it and he really liked it. And then the next thing he came over to my studio, and then he needed a title and a theme for this next album. And so Tin Planet came about from my work, and then the next thing I was on all like billboards and TV adverts and pop videos, and it was great, you know. That was my little moment in the sun then, you know. It was cool.
And can you tell me a little bit more about your art and what type of art you do? And
well, it's always very resourceful, you know. It comes about as feeling creative and how are you going to do it. And I've always, like, before I used cutting up tin cans, I was making collages from fruit wrappers and things that I'd find. And so, I mean, if you want to be creative, there is ways to be creative. And but the tin just went somewhere else because no one else was doing it. And so I was then making like little science fiction looking robots and spaceships and Cadillacs and rockets. It just went on and on. I just had a knack for it, you know. And my mind must work in a spatial way, you know, for 3D. I mean, I'm not trained as a sculptor. I did go to art school, but I didn't do anything like that, you know, and it just kind of fell upon it.
Yeah. Did any of that actually translate into your TV work? Because you could tell us a little bit about your TV work as well.
It did. Well, you know, we did Avenging Angel video, which I supplied the sculptures for. We did the TV advert for it as well. But then later on, I got a residency at ITV Granada from working with the staff to celebrate their 50th year of broadcasting, and I was given a studio in there to. And I had free reign to go through all the Key Street studios, and it was fantastic. And I'd get all like the old broken bits of props and lighting rigs and sound rigs and old cigar boxes from Coronation Street tobacconists, not, you know, everything. And I worked with the staff in making new artworks for the walls of the studios. And so, yeah, so that was a really good job as well, you know, for me.
Was there any key sort of high points of that time in TV?
Yeah, one of them was working on the World in Action logo, the Vitruvian Man, you know, the Leonardo da Vinci one, which we made with one of the members of the staff. She was the last remaining member of the World in Action team, and they'd actually all but freed the Birmingham Six. So working on that piece with the original script from those programs, World in Action, was fantastic.
And I did hear that both of you are involved in writing a theme for a soap or a a series, which is
Doctors.
How did that come about?
I think again it was because of the Lightning Seeds connection, and I got a phone call from BBC Worldwide Music, who had probably tried everybody else and were desperate.
I'm sure,
and so they just phoned me up and said they wanted this theme tune, and it wanted to be, I don't know, a mid-paced, no ambulance or heartbeats or anything like that. And so I walked around to Mike's, panicked first of all, walked around to Mike's acoustic guitar. I had a couple of chords, played in a couple of chords. You sort of did whatever, you twisted them round, and we had it done, really. Went into Space's studio, again, because our old friend Tommy, and recorded the theme tune, which is now, I think, in its 8th series. It's been going on for quite a few years.
Yeah.
It's 10th.
It's the 10th, and it goes worldwide, and it was nominated for the Ivor Novello Award, which, incredible, really.
Yeah. Fabulous. I just heard today as well, in fact, you've come hot foot from actually signing a deal for a book, Mike, Rhythm and Tide, I believe.
The Rhythm and the Tide.
The Rhythm and the Tide.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about that project?
Well, it's something I've been working on. I've always kept diaries and notebooks, and you know, And I did a big interview with a guy called Tim Peacock for a really great um, online music magazine called Whispering and Hollering. And because it was online, there was no kind of limit to how many pages he did, and it ended up being this big sprawling thing. And then we've worked with Tim as well. He's reviewed a lot of our albums with the label and stuff. And I just said, would you be into expanding this maybe into a book, you know? And Tim was really keen to do it. And I don't think I could have done it myself. And I needed somebody to prompt me, and somebody who was there to act as a sounding board and to give us a bit of perspective on things. If you're too close to things, you can't really, you know, gauge whether it's important or not. And he's helped me to put it all together. And with 4 years down the line, it'll be coming out in the autumn. So
Nice. That's with Liverpool University Press.
yes, yeah.
So
I'm really glad that it's with a local publishers as well, because it's all set in Liverpool, you know.
oh, fantastic. So I mean, we've covered an awful lot of ground in this section. I'd just like to go on to the next song that you're going to do for us, which is called "They're Animals." A bit of a ballad, this one. Can you tell us a bit about this, then, Mike?
Yeah, I kind of after I'd done a couple of solo albums with Paul, and I went back to my country roots, if you like, you know, and back to that roots music, and it's just a gentle ballad about animals and about the way how quick we are to call people who do despicable things animals, whereas in actual fact animals wouldn't do those things. You know, there's nothing preordained or thought about with an animal. They are what they are, and it's about the purity of that, really.
And when was this released and written?
It was probably released in about, it came out on an album called Mike Badger's Countryside, about 2008, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to hear this, and it's just the two of you on this one. So this is Paul Hemmings and Mike Badger, and they're performing this song, and this is called "They're Animals."
I never kill for fun, only kill to eat, to feed my hungry family, to get them on their feet. I never stolen anything, there's nothing I could own. All that I have is cast aside, I used to warm my home. Yet when you're kinda so unkind, I always hear you call. They're animals, they're animals, they're animals, that's all. All that I have I keep inside, no words to understand. With no such thing as hatred, I run free across the land. I protect and nurture, ask for nothing in return. All that I have is given free, nothing I need to earn. Yet when you're kinda so unkind, I always hear you call. They're animals, they're animals, they're animals, that's all. No complication, I only wish to be to soar, to swim, to run, to dive, to live a life that's free. When the dark night comes falling down and my coat has turned to gray, I'll lay me down contented and I'll be on my way. Yet when you're kinda so and kinda always hear you call, they're animals, they're animals, they're animals, that's all. Yes, when you're kinda so and kinda always hear you call, they're animals, they're animals, they're animals, that's all.
On this edition of Scouse Pop, we're talking to Paul Hemmings and Mike Badger. So, Paul, you've started off your own label, the Viper label. So, what made you think about doing that? And after your varied career in music, why label?
I'd always had the idea of doing a record label for probably 10, 15 years. And the funny thing was, the idea really came about from the Lars demos back in the day, which is what, 84. I was thinking of releasing them. I don't know if I ever even had a chat to Mike about it. But so I'd always had this idea of doing a record label, but never got round to doing it. And then it was on that Lightning Seeds tour, I had the idea of recording an album again with Mike. We always seem to connect here. And so I phoned Mike up and he said, yeah, he had these 12 songs. So we went into a studio, and through the Lightning Seeds, it opened quite a lot of doors. So we got a distribution deal, and we released the album with Mike Badger's Volume, and we were up and running.
Well, and once you got that up and running, was there any particular band you were looking for? Was there a sound you were looking for, or
No.
no?
Basically, no. Whatever we like and we feel's got something, we will release. There's no real rhyme or reason. It's just we just have to have that gut feeling. That's what it's about, really.
It's really refreshing. I know I've done a number of interviews with different labels and from Merseyside, and they've all given me that same answer, actually. It's just what we like. There was no corporate sort of, we're going to look for this and look for a particular demographic that we're going to sell to. It was just...
It's just that, and also because we're truly independent, there's no one really dictating terms. It's just the two of us. So we usually sit down and battle it out sometimes. And if one of us don't like it, we don't release it. But so we both have to like it, really.
So is there a few arguments on this, or...?
No, usually we're both of the same opinion. I can't even remember, actually. There's been, there's always between... as a partners, there's always something that goes on that you argue about, but usually it's plain sailing.
Yeah. It's certainly an iconic label because there's so many different type of music that's come out through the Viper label. So is that what makes you different? In fact, that they are different, or is that what gives you? I mean, there's people buying these, so why do they come back to Viper all the time?
Again, you're probably correct. We sort of definitely listen to each individual song, and we carefully construct the albums, and we're involved in everything to do with the whole creative process. Like with the covers, I mean, it's either I'm taking the photographs or Mike's artworks on the cover, or we deal with like a lot of local companies, Steve Hardstaff, who did the Pro Bag, and Nonconform Design Company in Liverpool. So we try and keep it all very local. And yeah, I mean, hopefully, well, people do like it. But ultimately, we want to please ourselves first.
Because you've got a mixture of some compilations, and then you've got artists. What's the current sort of thrust of the Viper labels? Thoughts.
Well, we're always working. Any label, I suppose, has to work on 4 or 5 projects. So at the moment, we're working on a couple of what I call archive ones, which are it's usually sort of out of copyright recordings.
Country blues and
jazz
stuff.
And then I'm working on another one with a guy from the Stairs, Edgar, at the moment. So there's quite a few very different things bubbling away.
In terms of your promotions, you do back this up with, I hesitate to call them gigs, they're more events. And I was at one last Thursday at the Palm House in Sefton Park, And it was unusual. It wasn't your standard gig. Could you tell us a little bit about those?
Well, we want to showcase not just actually stuff that's on the label sometimes, but people who we like. And the Palm House is a particularly beautiful environment to do it in, and it's just getting away from that gig thing. And so you're in a black box, and there's a band at the end, and everybody's standing there looking at the shoes, or it's trying to, like, say, what happened to the show, what happened to that ability to have some, even, what's the word, variety in it,
imagination.
Yeah. So we have dancers in there, and we have like magicians sometimes, and light shows, and low-key acoustic stuff, and some more up-tempo styles, and all set in a beautiful environment, really. We've done 3 of them now. No doubt we'll do more in the future sometime.
Yeah. I mean, I was there for my first one last Thursday, and as a member of the audience, I didn't know what was coming next. I had absolutely no idea.
Well, that's always good, isn't it?
It is.
The
Kept me on my
unexpected.
toes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, in terms of your own music projects now, yourselves, are you still writing, or what you're actually up to now?
Well, I've got a band together, which has been great. After I brought up a family, and so I had a lull after being in putting all my energy into that, and then did the artwork, and now I've got a band again now, which is a fantastic thing to be doing. It's just for fun, and we're playing mainly like rockabilly and country bop stuff, and I'm just selective about the places that we choose to play. We've been over to America, and it's just really good to be still doing it after all this time, to be honest.
Fantastic. Well, I've enjoyed your performances so far, and you're going to do another one for us soon. Just before we do go to the next song, about where can people find out about the Viper label?
From the website,
Which is?
www.theviper. Just look on Google.
The Viper label.
The Viper label.
Yeah. Yes, that's the easiest place to look.
Okay, so you're going to perform more of an upbeat number now, which is Jump Back Down All Around. Can you tell us a bit about this then, Mike?
Yeah, I've kind of gone full circle here, really. I've kind of gone right back to what I love, which is roots music. And I suppose if I summed it up, I've always played roots music, and at a very grassroots level, So it's just it's good time music.
Yeah. And you joined on this. You're ably assisted by
Paul on guitar on this version, and Kate Milner, who's got her own band, Luna Corona, and she's out and about playing as well. She's great.
Well, it's been absolutely fantastic having both of you in today, and we're going to finish off with your final track, which is Jump Back Down and All Around. Just remains for me to thank Paul Hemmings and Mike Badger for coming along to Bay TV today to talk about their musical careers and their record label. It's been a pleasure to have both of you on Scouse Pop. Thank you very much. Delighted, thank you.
Well, you got the look and just what it took. Now I'm glad to see it. You got me hooked. Jump back down, up, around, and do it again. You got the rock and I got the roll. You got the hop and I got the stroll. Jump back down, up, around, and do it again. You got the knife and I got the fork. You got the wine and I'll pop the cork. Let's jump back down, up, around, and do it again. You got the smile and I got the frown. Got to say you weren't me down. Let's jump back down, up, around, and do it again. So never ever leave me or make me feel bad. It's gotta be the best time we've ever had. 10 times better than it was before. Jump back down and do it some more. You got the look and just what it took. Now I'm glad to see that you got me hooked. Jump back down, up, around, and do it again. Now you got the look and just what it took. Now I'm glad to see that you got me hooked. Let's jump back down, up, around, and do it again. You got the rock and I got the roll. You got the hop and I got the stroll. Let's jump back down, up, around, and do it again. You got the knife and I got the fork. You got the wine and I pop the cork. Let's jump back down, up, around, and do it again. You got the rock and I got the roll. You got the hop and I got the stroll. Let's jump back down, up, around, and do it again. So never ever leave me or make me feel blue. It's gotta be the best thing it is for you. 10 times better than it was before. Jump back down and do it some more. You got the look and just what it took. Now I'm glad to see it. You got me hooked. Jump back down, up, around, and do it again. Let's do it again. Let's jump back down, up, around, and do it again. Let's jump back down, up, around, and do it again. Let's jump back down, up, around, and do it again.